Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be wrapping up all of the books that I read in December. In December I did manage to read 12 books, which was kind of great because I was feeling a little slumpy after I read so much in November. Of course, the majority of these books were romance, but not all. I did read one nonfiction book and then I read one one fantasy magical realism book. I did count one fanfiction that I read this month because I decided that I wanted to start doing that, and it was just so good that I didn't want to not count it. And then finally, the majority of these books are holiday related. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and chat about them real quick and wrap up my December reading. So first, the nonfiction book that I read was Into the Planet by Jill Heinerth. I read this for my library book club. This is a nonfiction memoir biography about this woman who is a cave diver who holds a world record, I think, for the first person to cave dive in an iceberg. Which, like, logically, like, in my brain, I cannot picture somebody cave diving in an iceberg, but it was still very interesting. I love cave diving. I think cave diving is so fascinating, and it's one thing that I would love to do, but also never would ever, because one, I can't swim, and two, cave diving is terrifying. But this was a really great book. Really, like, just a great, like, motivational story about this woman and all of the stuff that she went through to get where she did. It talks a lot about her being a woman in this business, just about, like, the stuff that she had to do in order to get where she went, and it was a really good book. Very fascinating, very thrilling. And I did really enjoy the audiobook as well. It was narrated by the author. The next book I read was The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrun. I've listened to the audiobook for this as well. This follows our two main characters who are involved in kind of a Bachelor-esque reality TV show where one guy is kind of, he goes on to be like the Bachelor because he just was recently fired from his job and he's had a little bit of trouble relating to people, and so his, like, PR manager or whatever tells him that he should do this in order for people to not like him better, but, like, to get back into the world, kind of. But he's never really had good relationships or really, you know, connected with a woman in that way. And then he falls in love with his, I don't know, his handler, I guess, who is also, and he is a romantic at heart, and he loves the idea of love and believes in this show so much that he's kind of blinded by the fact that nobody else does. But it's a really sweet romance. I will say there's a lot of anxiety talk and just a lot of how it affects the main characters. If that's something that triggers you, I would look into that. But overall, it was a really good book. I thought it was very adorable. I liked the audiobook. The audiobook was narrated by two different men, so that was really fun. It was a good book. I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was a fanfiction, a Dramini fanfiction, All You Want by SenLinYu. I really loved this because it was super freaking steamy and it was really good. This is a fanfiction that's set after, like, the war, the Hogwarts battle, and they're going back for their 7th year, and there are things that I don't want to spoil, so I'm not going to say any more than that, except it was really steamy, it was really good, it was cute, I loved it. Definitely very specific kind of tropes, so if you like fan fiction, definitely look into this one, but I'm not going to say any more than that. The next book I read was Dipped in Holly by Dana Isley, which is a novella, a Christmas novella. It's kind of a, I don't even know what kind of trope you would call this. It's definitely an age gap. But this woman is kind of broken up with in a really horrible way by her boyfriend at, like, a group meeting where they were, like, all of their friends are there and they're at a bar, and he's really horrible to her. And so she, like, runs off to the bathroom and is, like, talking to herself, and then the owner of the bar, like, overhears her, and they ended up, like, shoving it in the ex-boyfriend's face that they're gonna go ahead and have a one-night stand. And I think it's so cute in that way, and I just really love the way that the hero kind of just randomly cares for this woman and how she's treated, and I thought it was really fun. I will say that, like the other book that I've read by Dana Isley, I didn't love it. Definitely what she writes is not really what I'm looking for, so it's not like my favorite, but I know a lot of people really love her books. They're super steamy, and they're very just short, kind of like one shot, one night kind of thing. I think all of her books are kind of like, all of her novellas are like a one night kind of novella, but there is always a happily ever after, so it's cute. And I will say it wasn't very Christmassy, but there were holiday lights involved, and I will leave it at that. The next book I read was Awakens by Anna Fury. This is a weird concept, but it worked. So in this world, there is a kind of outbreak of a disease, kind of pandemic like, but what it does is kind of make, and it only affects men, so the men who get infected kind of have like violent outbursts, and so that's kind of what in the beginning our main character, our heroine, thinks that they're just like violent and they're dangerous and that you should keep away from them. But she is a journalist who wants to write about how families who have been affected by this, like how they are dealing with it as their sons or husbands or fathers or whoever are affected by this outbreak. And so she ends up meeting one of them, and they aren't like what she expects, and she ends up going to their compound to kind of live with them for a few weeks to write about what actually happened. And the ending of this shouldn't have been surprising, and I don't want to spoil it, so I'm going to say skip to the next book if you don't want to know how this one ends. This is a shifter romance, and you don't get that impression until the very end. So yeah, it was interesting. It worked. I liked it. I will continue with the series. The next was another Christmas novella, Christmas on the 13th Floor by Jacquot, I think is how you say the last name, or Jacquot. I don't know. This is, it was not my favorite. I know a lot of people liked it. It's just the type of thing that I'm not really into, but kind of a grumpy boss, sunshine assistant kind of thing, where she's always, like, she thinks that he's an asshole, but kind of likes him, and he likes to get under her skin on purpose because he likes how she reacts to it, like with emotion and passion, which I guess he's not getting elsewhere in his life. And so he is kind of an asshole on purpose, which I don't approve of that kind of thing, but it's fiction anyway. So she ends up getting a job somewhere else, and he's excited because that means now they can finally have a relationship, and they have Christmas on the 13th floor. Then the other non-romance book that I read this month in December was Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I read this with my personal book club, and I really loved it. It was super sweet, very heavy with grief, so if that's something that triggers you, be aware. But it is not as good as The House in the Cerulean Sea. I'm just going to go ahead and say that because The House in the Cerulean Sea was perfect. It was a perfect book. This I didn't love as much. It wasn't as whimsical, and it didn't give me as much like a cozy and just adorable vibe. So this follows our main character who dies unexpectedly, and he is collected by the Reaper to move on, but he doesn't want to move on because he doesn't, he's not happy that he's died, and he learns more about like how he lived his life and how people saw him and how he kind of missed out and all of these things, blah blah blah. I will say by the time I got towards like the mid to end point, I was like, this book, I don't know why, but as I'm reading it, the only thing I can think of is the movie All Dogs Go to Heaven, which is it's not the same thing, but that was my entire thought. I'm just like, this is what I'm thinking about right now. I do highly recommend this book. I think it was fantastic. I really loved the ending and how it all wrapped up, and I can't wait to read what else TJ Klune puts out because I think he's going to be an autobiography author from now on. Next, I read Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey, which everyone called a novella, but this book is over 200 pages, and that's not a novella to me. But anyway, it's another Grumpy Sunshine kind of book where The main character, she actually was just released from prison and she's trying to get her life back in order, and she is walking down the street looking at windows because she always wanted to have been a window dresser, which I think is so fascinating. I thought that was so freaking interesting. That was like my favorite part of the book, the window dressing part, because I just like, I mean, obviously it's a person's job, somebody has to do it, but I just never thought of it. And it's just like, it sounds like such a fun, creative, but also like, it's a hard job. Like like marketing, and you have to know what people want, and like, it's such an interesting job. That was my favorite part. And the owner of the store gives her a shot at working at his store, because, you know, she's an ex-convict, and because of the horrible world that we live in, you know, people are punished even after they've served their punishment. Anyway, I really liked this book because of the window dressing. I will say that was my favorite part, and probably like the only part I actually loved about this book. This book wasn't very steamy. Honestly, I don't even remember much of the actual relationship part of this book. But overall, it was just okay. The next book was the 12 Dates of Christmas by Jenny Balyiss. This book is exactly like what it sounds. It's 12 Dates of Christmas. This woman in this English town signs up for this dating thing where this company, like, they set up the dates and they like actually plan them as well. So she pays for this to have 12 different dates with 12 different people, and the dates are already planned. So they do all of these Christmassy dates, and it's just about this woman who's dating a bunch of people. And does she end up with any of those dates? I'm not going to tell you, but you might be able to guess, starting from the very beginning of this book, who she ends up with. I have to say, this is the most Christmassy book that I read out of all of these. Like, this one definitely gave me like those Christmassy, cozy, just holiday vibes, and I loved that. I did actually really like that book for this, or like this book for that reason. I found it very predictable, but I don't mind that. It's a romance. It's going to be predictable in some way. So I really enjoy this. I would highly recommend it for the next holiday season. And I read A Holly Jolly Diwali by Sonya, Lalli. This follows a woman who just loses her job, and her friend is having a wedding back in India, and so she decides to fly there since she just lost her job, so why not? And she ends up falling in love while she's there. It was cute. It was very insta-lovey, and I don't think it was done well. Overall, I think it was fine. I think it could have been more developed, but for a holiday novel, it was fine. So, not my favorite, but I still really enjoyed it. I also listened to the audiobook, and I thought it was really fun. Then I read Christmas Crush by MINK, which is just a little novella. I don't think I've ever read any of her books, though. I think they're all on Kindle Unlimited. This one was kind of ridiculous, but I think that was the point. It's about this girl who, after graduating from college, moves away from her hometown so that she can live in the big city, have a fancy marketing job, and then hates it. And the hero of the story has always loved her and sets up this plot to like inundate her grandmother with a ton of bakery orders, because she owns a bakery. So many orders that her grandmother's like, I need you to come home and help me because I can't do this by myself. So he kind of like tricks her into coming back home. It's super insta-lovey, like he loves her already and he's trying to convince her to stay and be with him. And it was fine. Was it very Christmassy? And there was like holiday baking. There was a lot of mention of Christmas decorations. The town is super snowy, so it gave that vibe a little bit, but it was just fine. And the last book that I read in December, my last book of 2021, another Christmas novella, was Merry Inkmas by Talia Hibbert. This one was also just fine. This is a novella, and it was way too heavy for a holiday novella. Towards the end of it, you get a lot of backstory from the hero, which was a little too heavy, I think, for the subject matter, which in a like regular full-length novel, I think would have been fine. This should have been a full-length novel. I feel like we definitely missed out on a lot. Like, we get a ton of back history for the hero, but we're missing, I think, a lot from the heroine, which I was not a fan of. But this one follows this girl who gets fired slash quits from her job at as a barista once her boss is kind of like really horrible to this homeless person who she had become friends with. And the hero is a tattoo artist and shop owner who kind of witnesses this whole thing and then offers her a job as a receptionist at his tattoo shop. And it's kind of a like a will they won't they. He really wants to, and she really wants to, but he says that he can't really have a real relationship because blah blah blah, past blah blah blah. And it was fine. It was coming from like after reading the Brown Sisters trilogy, I just feel like this could have been so much better. Like I felt like this could have been so good. And I feel like I missed out on what it could have been. But it was cute. It was a cute little holiday-ish romance. This one didn't feel very holiday-ish, but it did happen around the holidays, and she goes over his family's house for, is it Christmas? I think it's Christmas. I don't really remember, but it was just fine. I wish we would have gotten more. This should have been a full-length novel. And those were all of the books that I read in December. A very holiday romance month. I think this is the most holiday books I've ever read in a single year. Usually I don't read that many, and I really loved it. It made me feel this year, or 2021, had been such a weird year because I got a new job, and so I'm working from home, and I don't know why working from home makes it feel less holiday-like. I don't know why. Maybe because like I'm not going out as much and seeing like holiday lights. I don't know what it is, but listening to these audiobooks, mostly all of these holiday audiobooks while I was working, just put me in such a very festive mood, especially because like my whole office is working remotely mostly, so we don't have a holiday party like I'm used to at my last job for the past few years. So I felt like it helped me feel more festive, and I really enjoyed that. And yeah, so those were all of the books that I read in December. I think it was a great way to end the year, and I'm excited to start reading more books this month, and it is halfway through January and I've only read one, so yay, reading slump. But yeah, great year of reading. I read 201 books, which was insane. I can't wait to read more. So yeah, let me know what your favorite book of December was, and I hope that you have a great reading month this January, and I will see you in a new video soon.